You wake up, but you're not sure what day it is. You don't have a clock, and you wouldn't know what to do with one. There are no notifications, no alarms, no digital buzz to pull you back into some sense of obligation. Just the aching slowness of your limbs, the quiet breath of the earth beneath you, and the rhythmic groan of your own bones, reminding you that you have indeed survived another night. But survival here doesn't mean what it does now. It's not about optimizing your schedule or hitting milestones. It's something older, something softer, something that grows, not performs. And that difference, that ancient, forgotten way of existing is what we're stepping into tonight. This is not a test of your strength or your will. It's not about grit. The question isn't whether you'd be strong enough to survive as a 14th century peasant. It's whether your modern heartbeat could slow enough to feel time like they did. Because time back then, it didn't march forward. It echoed. It circled. It breathed with the earth and exhaled. Through the mouths of cows, the creaking of carts, the sound of a distant church, bell marking nothing urgent, just a gentle reminder that life continues. You were not chasing goals. You were tending the fire, tending the field, tending the mood of the day as it shifted with the sky. There was no morning rush, only the call of the rooster, the shift in light, the low mutter of water boiling over a shared hearth. You didn't rise to become something more. You rose because the sun did. You moved because the cows were hungry, because the hay was damp, because the roof leaked. You were a part of a fabric so tightly woven that it never occurred to you to escape it. There was no out there to dream of, only the here and the now and the slow, familiar dance of effort and waiting. Michel Foucault wrote of how power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the things we don't even see, in the rhythms we obey without questioning. The peasant didn't live in poverty the way we understand it, where lack feels like a failure. They lived inside a different story. A story where lack was the norm, where wealth was not expected, where suffering was communal and so was joy, where a loaf of bread was not a choice at the bakery but a triumph over weather, yeast, and time. What you call silence now, those still hours after midnight when your thoughts get too loud, was something else back then. Silence was rare. Even sleep had sound. A mother breathing beside you. Chickens rustling. A fire wheezing in its ashes. The wind whispering secrets through walls made of mud and straw. And the body? The body wasn't shaped by a gym. It was carved slowly by harvests, by snow, by carrying, by crouching, by waiting. Discipline didn't come from motivation. It came from the certainty that no one else would carry the bucket if you didn't. Tonight, I'm not asking you to imagine whether you would have endured this life. I'm asking something quieter, something softer. Could you have felt it? Could you have surrendered to it? Could your anxious fingers stop scrolling? long enough to knead dough by hand, not for health or hobby, but because bread was all there was? Could your thoughts be still long enough to hear the creak of a wood beam and know this too? Is time passing? You think you are tired. And you are. But it's a modern tired. The tired of always needing to be somewhere else, someone else. Back then, you still got tired, but it was a tired that belonged to you. A tired with dirt under its nails, a tired that slept well, not because everything was okay, but because everything was done for now. So no, this isn't about surviving. It's about remembering. Remembering what it means to exist in rhythm with the land, to belong to something slow, something real, to be shaped not by ambition but by routine, to surrender not out of defeat but out of peace. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find that part of you still knows how. Maybe the part of you that lingers in silence, that craves a pause, that aches for something solid beneath your feet. Maybe that part of you is already halfway there. There is no ticking, no digital hum, no vibrating reminder telling you to be somewhere you're not. Time doesn't arrive in minutes and seconds here. It arrives in echoes. It arrives in footsteps, on packed dirt, in the groan of a wooden door, in the chant of morning prayers drifting from a stone chapel down a winding path. It's not that the peasant didn't keep time, it's that time kept them. The bell tower, tall and still against. The morning mist is your compass. Not just yours, but everyone's. Its voice doesn't rush. It calls softly, rhythmically, like a breath rising and falling. It marks prayer, not pressure. Work, not performance. Rest, not indulgence. And in between its chimes, the world fills itself with a repetitive grounding. Noises of survival. A millstone grinding. In the distance, a rooster calling, without apology. The soft murmur of wool being spun by hands older than yours. The steady rhythm of wooden shoes against uneven ground. You don't hear silence here. You hear presence. The crackle of fire. The splash of water in a pail. The rustle of hay as someone turns in their sleep. This world has its own music composed entirely of needs being met in sequence. And that music becomes the calendar of your life. One beat for waking. One beat for tending. One for eating. One for kneeling. One for folding, lifting, brushing, sewing, waiting. Each sound tells you what comes next, not with urgency, but with familiarity. And so time doesn't cut through you here. It surrounds you. It wraps itself around your days like a shawl woven from small, repeated moments. You don't need to know the hour. You need to know the light, the temperature of the soil, the sound of birds returning to their nests. You need to hear the sigh in your neighbor's voice as she ends her prayer, or the shifting tone of your father's footsteps when the rain is coming. In the cities we know today, the sounds are constant, but disconnected. Honks, buzzers, sirens noise without story. But here, every sound has a name. Every step is a sentence. Every clang of the blacksmith's hammer is not just a tool being forged, it's an announcement. It's mid-morning and life is continuing. You don't run here. You don't multitask. You don't rush to finish just to begin again. Instead, you move with the noise of the village like a heartbeat that belongs to something larger than yourself. You're not an individual pressing through time. You're a note in a song that never really ends. And when night comes and the last bell fades into darkness, you don't check your phone. You don't count how many hours you have left to sleep. You simply listen. You hear the world exhale. You feel your body settle. And in that long, soft silence that still isn't really silent, you remember that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. You belong. Not because you're unique. Not because you've achieved. But because your breath adds to the rhythm. Because your footsteps echo back. Because your presence, quiet and unremarkable, completes the song. The walls breathe with you. Not metaphorically, but truly expanding and contracting with the moisture of the seasons, the exhale of summer, the hush of winter. You can smell the clay, feel the wood grain. Under your palm, hear the soft crack of straw above your head as the wind shifts. Your home is not built to purchase. It is built to last. Not forever, but long enough to hold your sleep, your fire, your family, and your grief. Everything here is close to the earth. Your bed is wood. Your stool is wood. Your spoon, your rake, your door, your floor, even the cradle that held your newborn, brother carved by the same hands that now shape the handle of a spade. There's a strange peace in this repetition. The same materials over and over, repurposed, reshaped, reimagined, not because it's quaint or aesthetic, but because it's what you have, and because it works. The clay that forms. The walls is not smooth. It's rough with memories. Bits of hay, specks of soot, fingerprints from neighbors who helped build it when your parents married. It holds the cold in. Winter, but not with malice. Just honesty. The floor beneath you is dirt, compacted by footsteps you recognize and footsteps you don't. There's no tile. No polish. But there's truth. The roof sighs above you straw and smoke weaving through the air like breath. It leaks sometimes. And when it does, you don't curse it. You patch it with more straw, with old cloth, with the help of a cousin or a neighbor. You fix it not because you have the time, but because the house is part of you. It shelters not just your body, but your rhythm. It holds your absence when you're out working and your stories when you return. You live in a space that's never truly finished. And that's the beauty of it. A window is adjusted when the wind changes. A wall is patched when it cracks. A door creaks more in spring, so you learn to walk softer. Everything responds. Everything evolves. And so do you. In the modern world, when something breaks, you throw it away. Or you search for someone to fix it while you scroll, detached. But here, fixing is living. Repair is reverence. Every mend is a memory. A cracked bowl sealed with resin becomes your favorite, not because it's perfect, but because you saved it. Because it stayed. Because it matters. Your house doesn't sparkle. It doesn't need to. It hums. It creaks. It welcomes. And even when it's dark and the wind howls and the fire is nothing but a whisper, you know this. The walls remember you. The floor knows your weight. The roof, even when it leaks, is yours. This is not just a shelter. It's a ritual, a continuity, a promise. And every time you touch the wood, sweep the floor, lean against the clay, you feel the truth of your own hands. Calloused, cracked, imperfect, but strong enough to hold a home together. The first sound isn't your thoughts. It's feathers. A shiver of movement from the co-op outside. A rustle, a cluck, a small protest. Against the cold morning light, you don't wake up because of an alarm. You wake up because life is stirring and it needs you. The chickens are restless. The goats are shifting in your body, though tired, knows it's time. There is no rush, but there's rhythm. The animals don't care about your plans. They don't wait for your mood. They don't ask if you slept well. They move with the light. And so do you. You throw a shawl over your shoulders, step into boots still damp from yesterday, and walk barefoot inside. Your own fatigue, but it's not a burden. It's a contract. An agreement with the earth, renewed each morning in the sound of wings and hooves and breath. The co-op smells of straw and warmth, and something sour, something ancient. You open the gate. They flood past you, not with chaos, but with memory. Each step they take reminds you that the day has begun. Not because you're ready, but because it's time. The sun has said so. The chickens have confirmed it. You simply follow. You feed them. Not what you choose, but what you have. Leftover scraps. Grains saved from last season. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is curated. There is no menu, just continuity. The act of feeding becomes a ritual, a grounding, a soft beginning. You watch them eat and you feel something settle inside you. This is how time moves. Slowly, predictably, softly. And when they're fed, you move on. To the goats, the pigs, the children. Each with their own rhythm, their own needs. But the animals always come first. Not because they're more important, but because they are your clock. Your calendar. Your mirror. You learn to read their moods like the sky. You recognize a sick hen before she shows symptoms. You know the sound of a restless goat. You feel the shift in the flock when a storm is coming. This is what care looks like. Not convenience. Attention. And in this quiet obedience to biology, something ancient awakens. A memory in your muscles. A patience in your chest. You are not controlling you are being carried by it. You are not conquering. Nature, you are listening to it. The chickens remind you every morning that time is not measured in schedules or goals. It is measured in need, in presence, in repetition. When you eat what's left, what's in season, what survived the frost. There's no indulgence, no appetite crisis. You eat because you must. And that too becomes a kind of peace, a surrender, a soft daily acceptance that this is enough. Today, food comes wrapped in choices, in noise, in guilt. But here, it comes in silence, in a bowl, in your hands, in the pecking of a chicken beside your feet. And at night, when the co-op is closed, and the birds nestle into each other like breath into lungs, you feel. The day closes with them. They sleep. And so you can sleep. Not because everything is done, but because everything has followed its rhythm. And that rhythm, as old, as breath, holds you still, holds you close, and teaches you without a single word what it means to belong to time itself. There's no refrigerator humming softly in the corner. No barcode to scan. No shelf to browse. There is only the quiet weight of time, sitting patiently in the corner of your kitchen, disguised as dough, rising in a wooden bowl. There was only the sharp, dry scent of salt clinging to your fingertips. Here, preservation is not a convenience, it's a philosophy, a way of living that measures success not in speed, but in survival. Salt is everything. It lines the rim of your memory, just as it lines the meat hung in the cool shade of the cellar. It is your treasure, your shield, your currency. You use it with care. Sprinkle, press, preserve. What you salt today may feed you weeks from now, when the frost has hardened the earth and the hens lay. Nothing but silence. Salt stretches the present into the future. It holds time still. And in that stillness, there is security. And then there is fermentation. A kind of faith. You cannot rush it. You cannot control it. You can only create the conditions and wait. Stir, knead, fold. Let rest. Let breathe. Let become. You wake up and the dough is slightly fuller, slightly warmer, slightly more alive. It is not magic. It is patience. The wild yeast in the air, the flour from a nearby field, the bowl that's been used. For 3 generations, all of it, conspiring quietly to feed you. Baking is not a task. It is a meditation. You press your hands into the dough and press your story into it too. The aches in your knuckles. The sleep in your eyes. The worry about the weather, the harvest. The aching knee that threatens to slow you. Down, all of it, enters the dough, and when it bakes crackling, golden, uneven, it carries all of that forward. It becomes memory you can eat, warmth you can hold. The bread is not perfect, but it is enough. A crust too hard, a center still soft, but it feeds, it fills, it stretches hunger into satiety, and you thank it not aloud perhaps, but in the way you slice it gently, in the way you pass it to someone else before serving yourself. This is what food means here, not choice, but offering. You don't count nutrients. You don't scroll recipes. You inherit habits, passed from hand to hand, kitchen to kitchen, voice to voice. A pinch of salt, a half-day rise, a cloth laid carefully over a bowl, not to impress, but to shelter. Each step is a repetition of care, a layering of quiet decisions that say, you matter enough to feed. And when someone says, this bread is good, it means more than flavor. It means the salt was earned. The waiting was worth it. The weather held just long enough. And your hands are tired, capable. Hands still remember how to make something? Out of almost nothing. In a world that worships the instant, fermentation reminds us that some things only come through time, through slowness, through surrender. It reminds us that not all change must be loud. That transformation can rise in silence. That warmth can come from something as simple as a bowl left near the hearth and a morning spent waiting. And so you wait. You trust. You rise alongside the bread. And in doing so, you remember, nourishment is not just about hunger. It's about hope. About time. About tending to something long enough to let it become more than the sum of its parts. You don't choose your clothes. They choose you. Or rather, the rhythm of life chooses. Them for you, what's been spun? What's been patched? What still fits? What hasn't worn through at the knees? There is no wardrobe. No mirror lined with indecision. Just a folded stack of repetition, coarse. Linen, wool with a memory, leather that has softened only because the years made it so. You pull on your tunic and it scratches. Your skin, not cruelly, but honestly. The fibers speak of the flax that grew in a nearby field, of the hands that pulled it, soaked it, combed it into threads. That shirt is not new. Nothing is new. It has been worn, mended, restitched. A tear on the hem from climbing a fence too quickly. A stain that smells faintly of iron. These marks don't shame you. They anchor you. Your belt is leather, darkened by sweat, and sun, wrapped twice because the holes know. Longer match your frame. A buckle you found, maybe, or inherited, something that holds more than fabric it holds place. It tells the world, without words, that you work, that you are needed, that you are not idle. You don't need embroidery to say that. The dirt beneath your nails does that well enough. The layers keep you warm. Not warm like modern insulation, but warm enough to move. Warm enough to carry, to bend, to wait for spring. Wool isn't soft. but it breathes. It responds. It carries the scent of the fire of the field of the animals you fed before dawn. You are clothed in evidence of the weather, of the labor of the day's slow unfolding. And if you are a woman, your hands know the spindle. Fear is not a choice. It is breath. The wheel turns with the same rhythm as your thoughts. Spin, twist, pull, repeat. Even when you're speaking, even when you're waiting, even when your body aches you. Spin, and the thread remembers. It remembers. Stories, births, deaths. It remembers the song your mother sang as her fingers did the same. To the outsider, all peasants might look the same. Muddy. Threadbare. Colorless. But you know better. You see the details. A stitched red, border on a sleeve, a cleaner cloak, saved for feast days, a cap tilted just so. You read these, signs like scripture. You know who washed their tunic yesterday, who got new boots from a cousin in town, who's still wearing their father's coat even though it drags in the mud. Clothing here is not expression. It is continuity. It marks the seasons on your skin. It tracks your growth, your setbacks, your resilience. It is not about beauty. But it has beauty. A quiet kind. The kind that comes from knowing exactly where every thread has been. Who touched it? Who wore it before you? Who might wear it after? And when you lay it aside at night, fold it gently, even if it's only to place it on. The floor beside your bed of straw, you do so with a kind of reverence. Not because it is fine, but because it is yours. Because it has carried you, shaped you, held you together in the wind, in the rain, in the long silent walk home. You may not own much, but what you wear carries more than fabric. It carries time. It carries truth. It carries you. The sky decides. Before you rise, before you eat, before you even open your eyes, fully, the sky has already spoken. You don't check a forecast. You check the mud, the mist, the weight of the air, pressing against your ribs. The climate is not background noise. It is the main character. It governs everything. You step outside and feel the chill in your teeth. The cold isn't just outside you, it enters, seeps into the folds of your tunic, settles in the small of your back. You know what kind of day it will be from the way your breath hangs in the morning, air from how quickly the chickens retreat beneath the coop instead of strutting into the yard. The clouds don't just pass. They judge. And yet you do. Not resent the sky. Not exactly. You watch it like a teacher. You never fully understand. It punishes, but it also blesses. A sudden sunbeam after weeks of drizzle feels like a personal gift. A dry breeze in late spring can lift more than just the scent of blooming herbs. It can lift your spirit, too. You don't expect fairness. You expect rhythm. You hope for mercy. Seasons arrive not with clean lines, but with mood swings. A frost in May can kill everything you planted with hope. A flood in September can wash away a year of labor in one night. And when it happens, you don't scream at the sky. You kneel. You gather what's left. You start again. Because that's what your parents did. That's what everyone around you does. The sky may be the master, but you are the apprentice. And survival depends on your humility. You don't complain about the rain. You listen to it. The way it drums against the thatch, the way it seeps into the walls, the way it makes the soil both rich and treacherous. You don't hide from, unless you must, because rain is life. And ruin and renewal, all at once. The sun is not always kind. It dries your skin until it cracks. It scorches the fields. But it also ripens the fruit, softens the grain, fills the air with golden breath. You squint into it with gratitude, even when it burns, because you know what comes when it disappears. There is no neutral day, no idle sky. Each morning holds a warning or a promise. Each wind carries the memory of storms past. Each season arrives not as a date on a calendar, but as a shift in the air, in your joints in the way. The village sounds at dawn. And that unpredictability, the constant negotiation with the sky seeps into the way. You pray into the way you hope, into the way you pace your work and temper your joy. You don't take tomorrow for granted. You don't take dryness for granted, or warmth, or shade. Everything is conditional. Everything is earned. The climate doesn't ask if you're ready. It simply arrives. And in response, you adapt. You bend. You bow. Not in defeat, but in wisdom. Because this is not your kingdom. It never was. You live on borrowed ground, under borrowed skies, guided by a power that neither explains nor apologizes. But when you sit finally at the end of a long soaked day, when the wind quiets and the fire begins to take hold, you understand something deep, something wordless, that even in the harshness there is pattern. Even in the chaos, there is cadence. And even when the sky is cruel, you belong to it. Just as much as it belongs to you. You don't believe because you're told. You believe because belief is woven into everything. Into the bread you eat. Into the ground you kneel on. Into the way the morning bell rings, not to call you to enlightenment, but to remind you it's time to live again. Faith isn't something you do. It's something you are, inside of all the time, like air, like dusk. There's no question of attending Mass. You go, not because you are holy, not because you are devout in the way modern language defines devotion. You go because it's what the village does. Because the rhythm of the week has a pulse, and that pulse beats through prayer. You walk beside neighbors, your cloak damp, your boots heavy with dew, and you say, nothing but you all move as one. The chapel isn't grand. It leans a little. It smells like stone and wax and the sweat of years. But you know every corner, every crack in the floor. You know where the candle always burns shorter. You know which hymn will be sung, even before the priest clears his throat. Familiarity is the religion. Repetition is the comfort. You are not seeking revelations. You are seeking ground. The saints are not distant here. They are part of your family. They hang from wooden icons in corners. They are carved above doors. They rest in the grooves of your amulet. Saint Apollonia for toothaches. Saint Isidore for the harvest. They don't float in golden clouds, they walk. With you, invisible but close, worn into. Your habits like the crease of your palm. Fasting doesn't. Feel like denial. It feels like remembering. That hunger sharpens your sense of place, of humility. It connects you to the soil, to the animals, to the people who have even less. You don't explain it. You just do it. As your mother did. As her mother did. As the woman down the path will do after, lighting her candle and whispering the same. Prayer you whispered last night. Confession is not an event. It's a cycle. Like sowing, like reaping. You speak your small failings into the ear of someone who also has failings, and you both understand this. It isn't about punishment. It's about return. A way back to balance. A soft way of being accountable. Not to power, but to presence. To the village. To the self you want. To keep becoming. Religion here is not spectacle. There are no stages. There is no applause. There is only rhythm. The rhythm of bells. The rhythm of feasts and fasts. Of saints' days and market days. Of incense and ash. Of ordinary sacred repetition. Of doing what your body already knows. How to do: kneel, bow, breathe, rise. And though you may not speak. Of faith often, it is everywhere. In the hand you place on the shoulder of someone who grieves. In the bread you break and share. In the silence you hold as the priest lifts. His voice in Latin, words you don't fully understand, but somehow always feel. Today faith can feel like a private thing, a curated thing. But here, it's shared. And in that sharing, there is comfort. You're never alone in belief. Even your doubts echo in others. Even your silence is answered by the rustle of others standing, kneeling, crossing themselves in the pew beside you. You may not be devout, but you are devoted to the rhythm, to the return, to the sacredness of sameness. And when you walk home in the cold morning, light, the frost melting beneath your breath, you carry something quiet with you, a stillness, a belonging, a reminder that the soul doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be fed. Regularly, gently. like a fire kept alive, with ash and care. There is no weekend, no sabbatical, no out-of-office reply. But somehow you are not drowning. The work is constant. Yes, but it is not cruel. It is woven into the hours, into the hands, into the air you breathe. You don't fight it. You don't dread it. You simply begin. There is always something to do. A rope to repair. A child to carry. A goat to lead. But the day doesn't chase you. It welcomes you slowly. You rise, you stretch, you lift. And between the labor, there is room for breath, room for silence, room for the kind of pause that doesn't need permission, only presence. You don't clock in. You don't track hours. Your body is your calendar. When it aches, you listen. When it strengthens, you move. And the work responds in kind. Tasks are shared. Not equally, perhaps, but naturally. The old carry less. The young carry more. The strong teach the tired. The rhythm adjusts, not from kindness, but from necessity, a kind of communal instinct for balance. No one works alone. Even solitude carries echoes. When you dig, you hear someone chopping wood nearby. When you spin wool, a story drifts from another corner. Words half soon, half spoken. Something about a harvest gone wrong. Something about a dream someone had. The work is not quiet, but it is soft, layered with memory, with breath, with belonging. You pause not when the task ends, but when the light shifts, when your body asks. Under a tree, beside a wall, with bread in your hand and dust on your skin. Someone might sit beside you. They might not speak. But their silence joins yours like music. You chew slowly. You wipe your mouth with a sleeve that's already dirty. You lean your head back and let your thoughts drift like clouds. These pauses small. Scattered, sacred are your rest. Not earned. Not stolen. Just taken gently. The world doesn't stop for you, but it slows. And in those moments, the work feels less like a burden and more like a rhythm your body was meant to move with. The tools you use are worn, smooth from years of touch. They don't hum with electricity. They creak. They bend. They resist. And in that resistance, you feel alive. You feel real. Not optimized. Not upgraded. Just useful. Just needed. Just here. You are not working towards an abstract goal. You are working toward tomorrow. Toward evening. Toward enough. And that's all. There is dignity in that. A quiet, grounded dignity that asks nothing more of you than your presence, your attention, your willingness to keep going slowly, honestly, with dirt beneath your nails and breath in your chest. Today, we often mistake stillness for laziness, rest for weakness. But here, stillness is wisdom. Rest is resilience. And the body you inhabit, though tired, carries not exhaustion but fulfillment, not depletion but rhythm. And when the sun dips and the tools are hung and the last chore is done, not perfectly, but enough, you don't feel behind. You feel complete. You sit beside the fire, and the day sits with you. And in that shared silence, you understand. You have not wasted a single breath. You have used it. Fully. Freely. Without rush. This is work. And this is peace. Not as opposites, but as companions, quietly holding hands beneath the setting sky. You are not a hero in this story. You are not the center. You are part of the field, part of the fog, part of Luton Spoon, and the cracked window pane. You are not designed for glory or greatness. You are designed to endure. And in that endurance, something sacred takes root. Yuval Harari reminds us that we were not made to chase dreams that hover just out of reach, not to build brands, not to optimize every hour. We were made to adapt, to belong, to survive with others, to sit close around a fire while the wind howls outside and bread cools on a slab of wood beside you. We were made for this slowness, this sameness, this surrender to something older than ambition. The 14th century peasant did not wake up each morning chasing purpose. They woke up to survive the day, to care for the body, to carry water, to kneel in prayer, to keep children alive, to bury the dead, to smile in the middle of all that not, because life was light, but because it was real, because the touch of a hand, the warmth of a stew, the sound of bells and fog meant more than they should have, and that meaning quiet and grounded was enough. You survive not by conquering the world, but by accepting the rhythm of it. You survive not by knowing the future, but by making peace with the present, with what's in your hands, with what's in your reach. The Campones did not have space for illusions of control. They had space for each other, for stories, for silence, for breath. And maybe you feel that now, in your bed, in your room, in the stillness that settles after this journey into their world. Maybe you recognize some part of yourself in that dirt, in that bread, in that endless repetition of days that somehow still offered surprise, offered warmth, offered rest. Perhaps the peasant still lives in you, the part that slows when the kettle sings, the part that watches the rain and does nothing else, the part that waits for bread to rise without rushing it, the part that whispers a thank you into the dark without knowing exactly who's listening. Maybe survival isn't about progress. Maybe it's about presence, about feeling your own weight in the chair, the softness of your blanket, the hush of the night that wraps around you like straw around a roof. Not perfect, but shelter. Not planned, but enough. And so, as the fire fades and your eyelids grow heavier, remember this: you have already survived more than you know. You have already adapted to seasons you didn't choose. You have already carried more than anyone saw. And tonight you don't have to carry anything. Just breathe. Just rest. Just let the echoes of the past settle in your chest like dust in a quiet room. Because you lying in your warm bed are the quiet continuation of a story that never really ended. A story of waiting, of enduring, of belonging to something simple and vast and real. Sleep well. The world can wait. The fields will still be there in the morning, and so will you.